The entire office had gone silent when my CEO walked through the glass doors that morning, wearing a dress I had never seen before. She looked elegant, confident, almost untouchable, but there was something in her eyes that told me she wasn't feeling any of those things. A few minutes later, she stopped beside my desk, looked down at herself, and quietly asked, "Do I look good in this dress?" I should have given her the easy answer everyone else would have given. Instead, I looked into the eyes of the woman who had built a company from nothing and said something that made her completely speechless. I told her that the dress was beautiful, but it wasn't the thing that made her beautiful, and that perhaps the most important thing she needed to see that day wasn't her reflection in the mirror, but the person she had forgotten she was. What happened after that question changed both our lives. Before I continue, if you believe kindness can give people a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear this story, leave a comment, and subscribe to Epic Story Hub. Sometimes one small act of kindness can reach a person at the exact moment they need it most. My name is Soren Vale, and at 32, I had learned not to expect much from life. I worked as a junior operations coordinator at a technology company called Northbridge Dynamics, a place where everyone seemed to move twice as fast as I did. People wore expensive watches, carried polished leather bags, and spoke about investments over lunch. I was different. I arrived every morning on the same old bus, carried the same worn backpack, and ate lunch at my desk because I was trying to save enough money to help my younger sister finish college. I wasn't ashamed of my life, but I had become very good at staying invisible. The woman at the top of that company was Arlette Rowan, our CEO. She was known for being brilliant, demanding, and nearly impossible to impress. Employees respected her, but very few felt comfortable around her. She could walk into a meeting and make 10 executives rethink a decision without raising her voice. To me, she had always seemed like someone who didn't need anyone. I had never imagined that beneath the tailored suits and controlled expressions was a person carrying a loneliness far heavier than anything I could understand. That morning, something was different. Arlette arrived wearing a simple deep blue dress, not the sharp business suits she normally wore. It was elegant but modest, and she looked almost like someone preparing for a celebration rather than another day at the office. Yet she kept checking the reflection in the dark window near reception. She would glance at herself, look away, then look again. Nobody noticed because everyone was too afraid to stare. Around noon, I was carrying a stack of reports toward the conference room when I saw her standing alone near the hallway mirror. She touched the sleeve of her dress and sighed. Then she noticed me. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure whether she should. Finally, she asked whether I thought the dress looked good on her. I stopped. My first instinct was to say yes and keep walking. But something about her expression made me pause. She didn't look like a CEO asking for a compliment. She looked like a woman asking for permission to believe she was still worth looking at. I told her the dress was beautiful, but I didn't think that was really what she wanted to know. She looked at me with surprise. I continued carefully, telling her that anyone could look good in a beautiful dress, but what made her stand out wasn't the dress. It was the fact that she had spent years building something that gave hundreds of people jobs and thousands of customers a reason to trust the company. Then I told her that if she was asking because she needed someone to convince her she was beautiful, she shouldn't need a mirror or a CEO title to prove it. She deserved to believe it even on the days when she didn't feel it. She didn't answer. For several seconds, she simply stared at me. Her expression changed from surprise to something softer, almost vulnerable. Then she whispered that no one had ever spoken to her like that. I thought I had crossed a line. I apologized and started to leave, but she stopped me. She asked why I had said those things. I told her the truth. My mother had spent the final years of her life believing she had become a burden after losing her job. She would look in the mirror and see everything she had lost instead of everything she had given. I told Arlette that I had learned too late that sometimes people don't need advice or compliments. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them that their worth didn't disappear simply because life became difficult. Arlette looked away. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them before anyone could see. That afternoon, I discovered why she had worn the dress. She had been planning to meet someone for lunch, a man she had been involved with for nearly a year. His name was Callan Mercer, a wealthy investor who often appeared at company events. I had seen him before. He always seemed charming in public, but I had noticed how he spoke to Arlette when he thought nobody was watching. The lunch never happened. Instead, Arlette returned to the office 2 hours later with the same dress and an expression that seemed completely different. She didn't explain anything. She simply went into her office and closed the door. Later that evening, while most employees were leaving, I was still working on a financial report when I received a message asking me to come upstairs. I assumed I was in trouble. When I entered her office, Arlette was sitting beside the window, looking out at the city in the bright afternoon sunlight. She told me that Callan had ended their relationship because he believed she was becoming too focused on work and no longer looked like the woman he had fallen for. He had told her that the dress was beautiful, but she had become too serious, too tired, and too difficult to love. She said she had almost believed him. Then she told me something I never expected. She said my words had made her realize that she had spent years allowing other people to decide whether she was attractive, successful, lovable, or worthy. She had built a company because she knew how to fight for everything except herself. I didn't know what to say. Over the next few weeks, something quietly changed inside the office. Arlette became more approachable. She started eating lunch with employees instead of alone in her office. She began asking people how they were doing and actually listening to their answers. She noticed things she had never noticed before, like the receptionist struggling with childcare costs and an engineer secretly taking night shifts to pay for his father's treatment. Then one morning, she called a company-wide meeting. Everyone expected another announcement about quarterly targets. Instead, Arlette stood before hundreds of employees and announced a new employee support program that would provide emergency financial assistance, counseling resources, flexible schedules, and educational grants for workers and their families. She said a company shouldn't measure success only by profits. It should also be measured by how many lives it improves. I sat near the back of the room, stunned. At the end of the meeting, she looked directly at me. She didn't mention my name, but I knew. Months passed. Northbridge grew faster than ever. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was human. People stayed longer after work to help one another. Managers began listening. Employees stopped being afraid to admit when they were struggling. Then came the day my sister graduated from college. I had never told Arlette the exact date, but somehow she knew. That afternoon, an envelope appeared on my desk. Inside was a handwritten note congratulating my sister and a scholarship extension from the company's new education program. I later learned Arlette had personally approved it. I went to her office and thanked her. She smiled and told me I had taught her something important that day in the hallway. I told her I hadn't taught her anything. I had simply reminded her of something she already knew. She disagreed. She said sometimes the people who seem strongest are the ones who need someone to remind them that they don't have to be strong every second. Years later, people at Northbridge still talked about the day their CEO walked into the office wearing a blue dress and asked one ordinary employee if she looked good. Most remembered it as a strange little moment. They never knew how close she had been to losing faith in herself that day. I remembered something else. I remembered the silence after my answer. The silence of a woman who had spent years hearing what she was supposed to be, finally hearing that she was enough simply because she was human. And perhaps that is what kindness really is. It isn't always rescuing someone from a disaster. Sometimes it's just seeing the pain behind their smile. Sometimes it's saying the honest thing when a compliment would be easier. Sometimes it's reminding someone that their value isn't measured by a dress, a job title, a bank account, or another person's decision to stay. Arlette taught me that success isn't about standing above everyone else. It's about reaching back when you've climbed high enough to pull someone else up. And I learned that day that the smallest moments can become turning points. We never know what battle another person is fighting behind a perfect appearance. The person sitting quietly beside you might be holding together a life that is falling apart. A simple kind word might not fix everything, but it might give them enough strength to make it through one more day. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Epic Story Hub for more emotional stories about kindness, courage, and second chances. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment, "Kindness still matters," if you believe that one sincere act can change someone's life. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing we can give another person isn't money, advice, or success. Sometimes, it's simply the courage to look at them and say, "I see you. You matter. And you are enough." And perhaps, somewhere today, someone is standing in front of a mirror, wondering if they are still worthy of being loved. If you meet that person, don't just tell them they look good. Remind them why they are worth seeing.